celestial numbers, about the heavens, about moon and earth, and it's going to tie in greatly to Revelation. So I'm going to put that in the comments because I don't think I actually said what I'm talking about here. So this is about Revelation and Kabbalah. All right. Hey, Stephen. And I see Tracy has joined. So, yeah, I got a couple on already. So I am just off to the side, by the way, but I'm just saving myself a place to write on the board here. So there's going to be some important stuff, and the way it ties together is amazing. We're literally going to talk about the number 1260. Does anybody know what that is, what that represents, why that's important? 1,260. Tracy, Stephen, you heard that number anywhere? When I say it, you're going to say, oh, yeah, I totally know. Let's see if you... Comes from Revelation, 1,260. Well, and by the way, if I do drop off, I will restart this. So just hang out on my page there for a minute or two, and I'll get it right back up. It has been dropping a lot. So, well, 1,260 is half of the 7-year tribulation spoken about in Revelation. And you'll notice the numbers look familiar. You know, we talk about the cube all the time, 2,160 degrees in a cube. I'll refresh the memory of those that don't remember. Here's one cube. Let's see. Okay, it's showing up just fine. And each cube has 90 degrees in it, right? If you count all the corners in a cube, you count 24 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then the back sides. 24 corners times 90 degrees equals 2,160. So that's one cube, and it's very important. So when you think about half of the tribulation, which is 1,260 days spoken of in Revelation, you see that they're the same numbers in a little bit of a different order. But there's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain to you how it is still related to Kabbalah and to the cube. Now, you probably have, you probably noticed already that the number is right here. This circle represents the moon. The bigger circle represents the earth. If you got a piece of paper and a pencil, I would strongly recommend that you write down what we're doing here to help you follow along. And plus, if I have to erase anything later, you'll be able to refer back to it in your notes. I'm going to try to adjust my camera just a little. Hope it doesn't mess it up. Yeah. All right, anyway. So this is 2,160 up here at the top. That represents the diameter of the moon. That's what NASA tells us is the diameter of the moon, give or take, you know, literally just a handful of miles. The Earth diameter right here, 7,920. This is all in miles. From Wiki, I found out that it's 7,900 and I don't know. They changed it to 26. So like, you're always going to get that crazy person who's going to say after, no, it's 7,926. So everything you say is wrong. Okay, they're the same people that when I was talking about how 666 is related to the height of the Washington Monument, they said, no, it's 4 inches off. I guarantee you there's going to be that one clown that just comes on here later and makes some note. You know, you know, like that really changes anything. You know, like their math was wrong because of 4 inches. You know, like that really. Appreciate those thumbs up. You know, it's the idea that they're doing here. Okay, and you're gonna have to tell me, even with the extra 6 miles or whatever, you know, 6 miles out of almost 8,000, like that really changes the general idea of what they're trying to tell us here. You know, and I'm sure at one time they probably said it was 7,920. That's where they started with, and then later on people were catching on to what I'm about to tell you, and then they said, oh, let's add that 6 miles on and say our satellite saw that it was just a little off. You know, is just to mix people up and for the incredibly naive to just go and say, no, it's 7,926, All right, so how do we get 1260 out of 2,160? Well, all you do, just like in Gematria, is you add zeros, okay? In fact, 1260 is going to be right here in the middle. I'll make sure this is visible. So there's our tribulation time, okay? 1,260 days is equal to 3.5 years of tribulation. Or if you want to think of it this way, 360 days a year, which is the old year, not our modern year, but the way they figured it before. 360 days times 3.5, and that's going to be very important later. We're going to talk about that, okay? Because 360 times 3.5 gives us our 1260, okay? So that's 3.5 years of the tribulation. That's where they get that, okay, in the Bible. Now, let me erase that so it doesn't confuse anybody. Now, we're going to go divide in half this way, and we're going to double going down. So divide it in half this way. I know this ain't the normal way you write, but it's the best way I can make it fit on the board, okay? 1260 divided by 2 is 630. And 630 divided by 2 is 315. So we're going to see why these numbers are all important, one at a time. 315 is the number of the zodiac. And what I mean by that is if you take Pleiades, Virgo, Gemini, the name Sagittarius, I don't know all 12 by memory, but if you did all 12 and you punch into the septenary cipher, the Bible cipher, and you add the values all together, it equals 315. And notice how we said that 3.5, which is pretty similar to that number, is the number also of the tribulation. So you see that they're already sort of connected in a couple different ways. But we still haven't got to our cube yet, have we? Hey, Pete, glad to have you on here. Now, let's see. Now we're going to start doubling the 1260, our half of the tribulation period. So when you double it, it becomes 2520. Gosh, this marker's awful. Let's see if the other one does any better. I got a whole box of them if they don't. There we go, 2520. And then we're going to just keep doubling. Double again. That would be 5,040. Do we see that number up here anywhere? It's right here, right? This number is the radius of the moon. The little circle's the moon. And the radius of the earth added together. Radius is half a circle. So half of the radius of the moon, or the radius of the moon and the radius of the earth added together is 5040. So look at that. Huh. So the half of the tribulation, 1260, is related to this here already. That's really interesting, isn't it? But we're not done yet. Let's keep going. We're going to times it by 2 again. That equals 10,080. Logically, you know, if the radius of the earth and the moon together is 5,040, then the diameter, the full circle of the moon and the full circle of the earth, the full diameter, the entire line all the way across, okay, added together would be double, right? Hey, Jonathan. Hey, by the way, Jonathan taught me half of this stuff, just so you know. So you want to learn more, go back see Jonathan, too, on Mathematics, the Las Vegas shooting page. If you haven't joined that, I strongly recommend it. We back engineer this stuff. We figure this stuff. We don't have teachers, okay? Nobody's like telling us this stuff. We just sit down at calculators and we find pictures like this and we just back engineer it. We just try to figure it out, you know? So, and by the way, it's pretty simple math. I mean, it's just add, if you can add, multiply, and divide, and rarely, very rarely even ever do we use subtract for some reason. But add, multiply, and divide is pretty much all you have to know to be able to do most of this. Well, so you see that 10,080 is here. You see that 5,040 is here. And Jonathan, 1260, you missed that first part, is the number of days of the Great Tribulation, the last half of the 3.5-year tribulation. It's 7 years total, but the last half is 3.5 years, which the Revelation says is 1,260 days. So we are in the process of finding out how 1260 relates to the cube, which is 2,160. Pete, that would be the mathematics of the Las Vegas shooting. That was the page we were talking about. Now we're going to multiply it one more time. And now all of a sudden it's going to start to make sense how it relates to the cube. 20,160. Like we said, there's your cube right here, which is what they assigned to the diameter of the moon. And we see now, with just a couple extra zeros, that it's the same thing. Okay? So that's how 1260 is related to 20,160 or 2,160. Because in gematria, numerology, this sort of stuff, sacred mathematics, this zeros don't mean anything. Now, you can say that this is just a scrambling of this if you want to be lazy, but this is really what it's doing. This is how they're really related, okay? So 1260, the last half of the tribulation, is related to Kabbalah, the study of the cube. 2160. All right. And you see this when they tell us how the size of the earth. These are the numbers that they give us. So are they real? Are they real numbers? You know, I'd like to verify it. I'd really like to know. I really want to know if these numbers are real. Well, Stephen, I'm in the middle of a lesson, bud. I'll talk about my day another time, buddy. But I had a pretty good day. Hope you did too. Okay, so let's see. Now, 3.5 years, 3.5 years. Think about that for a second. Think about how much time we have spent talking about the number 35 in all the lessons we do and why we keep seeing 35. I'm going to review that. Let me put that up for a second. Okay, we're talking about 3.5 years of the tribulation, or the number 35. If you haven't seen my Bumblebee movie, I strongly encourage you to go back and see my video about the Bumblebee movie. Because on that movie, on that video, on the Bumblebee movie, there is a scene where the helicopter is zoomed in, and I talked about it in my last couple videos too. So, but on the helicopter wing, it says 13553, and that's not an accident, because the last scene is Bumblebee and Optimus Prime driving across the Golden Gate Bridge. Golden Gate Bridge in the English ordinal cipher sums to 135. But that's not the only thing that sums to 35. I mean, 35 is all over every single mass shooting, decode, everything that we do in an uncanny, crazy way. Bumblebee's license plate also, L89PCE. Type that into your Gematrinator calculator there and see what it equals. It's 35 and 53. 3.5 years of the tribulation. And if you spell out the number 35, it equals 53 in the septenary cipher. Now, just to give you some more ideas of how these things go together, if you take the date of the Colorado school shooting, the most recent one, on May 7th, multiply it out, it equals 315. Like we said, Golden Gate Bridge equals 135, and we're expecting an attack there. The movie Escape Room, the elevator said 1,350 on it for who knows what reason, right? I'm sure there had to be a reason. And at the end of the movie, it said, "No way out," in parentheses in the last part of the movie. No way out equals 35. Remember that Paddock from the Las Vegas shooting? We're just talking about our page, the mathematics of the Las Vegas shooting. Well, Stephen Paddock was in room 135. That's not a coincidence. Why the 3.5? Well, because they're talking about great tribulation. Remember how they were shooting down at all those people, and they were considering all the remarks on the media about how those were those country music people. That's the Christian right. We're glad that they're dead. You know, somebody actually said that on TV in the mainstream media. You know, so and by design. You know, she didn't just make that up off her head, I don't believe. Think about how Captain Marvel had made $135 million its first weekend, supposedly. You know, or that how the towers at Willow Island, the ones half an hour away from where I live, Willow Island equals 153, and they collapsed in conjunction. And I'm not going to get into that today because it'll be a rabbit trail from what I'm talking about. But Willow Island equals 153, and it's synced with 9/11, two towers falling. And they're not the only two towers, two cooling towers that are synced with 9/11. There's one here this last April that also was synced with it. So let's see, we had on flight 370, the Malaysian flight that disappeared, that the pilot was 53 years old and the co-pilot's name equals 53. Isn't that weird? The Vesica Pisces, right? Type that word in, that equals 53. You might remember that the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, that the Mothman movie was made about, Route 35 goes across it. You know, and it collapsed back in 1968, if I remember right. The Minneapolis Bridge, that collapsed also, just coincidentally. I'm sure it's total coincidence, but it has Interstate 35 going across it. Now get this. Get this. We're still talking about 35, but this kind of blows my mind a little bit. If you take the word revelation in the septenary cipher, in fact, hopefully you've written this down by now. If not, you can rewind after the video here and write this stuff down because you're going to want to refer back to it. Let me show you something about revelation real quick, the word. If I'm not mistaken, I think Jonathan discovered this. Very fascinating. Okay, revelation. And I do make mistakes. If I made a mistake, feel free to point it out. It's not the first time, okay? I'm a work in progress. Sometimes I get numbers backward or something. You know, things happen, right? Using the septenary cipher, the Bible cipher based in the book of Genesis, the 7 days of creation, talked about in multiple Hollywood movies, like The Matrix, like Escape Room, like Scorpion King, all talk about this cipher, okay? So you multiply those out, and it equals 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 2 times 7 times 2, okay? Multiply it out, and it equals 875. Now, in numerology, there's this concept called mirroring, which is why you see in movies a lot of times you see demons live in mirrors and that sort of thing. This is what they're talking about, okay? The concept of mirroring in mathematics. 578 is the mirror of 875. So add that together. And it equals this really interesting number, 1453. You see the 5 and the 3 right here, right? Well, guess what? Anybody know what year that is? Anybody know what happened in the year 1453? See how good your history is. Now, I spotted that immediately. Okay, as soon as I saw 1453, I knew exactly the significance. But I'm also really good at history. I could literally write you a timeline that goes back 6,000 years and get you at least a few things that happened in each century. For the most part. There's a few I might be missing. But I try. Okay, 1453 is the year of the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Okay, that's huge in history. That is a massive big deal. And it's related to Revelation and the 3.5 years of the tribulation. Wow, right? That is absolutely amazing. All right, so what else about 35 comes to mind here? Pacific Rim, where they destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge, where the big kaiju monsters, kaiju, pronounce that phonetically, where the kaijus destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, that happened in the year 2035, again with the 3-5. And their robots that they used to beat the kaiju were called Jaegers, which equals 35 as well. Unbelievable. Oh gosh, there's so many more. Think about how Tiger Woods, who unexpectedly won golf this year. Yeah, the fall of Constantinople, exactly. So think about how Tiger Woods unexpectedly won this year. Type in Tiger Woods in the English ordinal cipher. If you're not familiar with that, you go to gematrinator.com, go to Tools, open up your calculator, type it in. Tiger Woods equals 135 again. Isn't it interesting that Daniel chapter 12 says, "Blessed is the man that makes it to the 1,335 days." 1335 again. And if you take a cube, 2,160, and you keep dividing it, 2,160 down here, take our cube, and you just keep dividing it by 2, by 2, by 2. Eventually, the smallest number that you can get without a decimal point was 315. Remember, that was our first number up at the top, which is the total of the zodiac. So you see how the cube is related to the zodiac, and how the zodiac and the cube are both related to Revelation, and to this fictitious set of numbers that NASA supposedly is spending who knows how many millions of dollars to give us, that somebody made up by simply doubling the cube enough times. What a waste of money, right? I could have done that. All right. Or maybe they are the real numbers. Okay, prove it to me. This is the thing right here. This is why I'm saying I'm suing for answers today, because imagine if you are an atheist or an evolutionist and you believe that chance just somehow, you believe in spontaneous generation, that molecules just jump to life one day, and that those molecules just somehow not only jumped to life, but they also knew how to find a girlfriend, that it also spontaneously jumped to life somehow. That all the millions of parts and even the simplest conceivable cell would all have to jump to life together at the same time, not only be able to reproduce, but also have to know how to find food, metabolize food, and have all the coding automatically form itself together inside of a DNA spiral so that it can form all the parts of that cell again when it reproduces. Now, if you're really naive and stupid enough to believe that, well, odds are this stuff is, how are we going to get through to you on this? I don't know, because you're already pretty dumb, but you have a lot to lose. You have a lot to lose as an evolutionist or an atheist if you can't explain this. If you can't prove to me that these numbers are true, because this is an amazing coincidence. That can't just happen. But of course, you're going to dismiss it because you believe that molecules can just jump to life by themselves one day. Despite that, spontaneous generation was disproven back in the 1800s by Louis Pasteur. Okay, but no, Charles Darwin, he knew. He knew the truth, right? He knew how just molecules dirt can just get sparked by lightning one day. Because, hey, it works for the Flash, right? He got sparked by lightning and got superpowers. So obviously, if you got zapped by lightning, nothing bad would happen to you. So millions of years ago and long ago and far away, you know, lightning probably zapped some dirt and it just came to life one day. It doesn't happen today. Can't happen. Probably the dirt in your houseplant's pot probably just jumped to life one day, and that plant just grew there because everything that is necessary for life is definitely present in the dirt in the pot, or it wouldn't grow, right? So I'm sure if you sparked that dirt with enough lightning, it would come to life. And so I'm just trying to buy a little time, hoping that those of you that were just on will come back. Nothing I can do about it. It's just Facebook. My wife was losing signal on her video, so I don't really think I'm being censored at this point. I think it's just what happens. I know everything's good from here to the modem, but what happens to the signal after that, I don't know. So please come on back on and join me. All right, so we're going to go back to more on the cube. Well, that's not the, oh, here it is. Okay. All right, got my marker back here. So we've got some of our numbers here. We've already found this one, and we found this one, and of course these two, which is just the difference of adding zeros, right? Now this number here, 3160, I have PER right here because it stands for perimeter. And the perimeter, that means the fictitious square. It's not really a real square going around the earth, obviously. Okay, but the square that would go around the earth if it touched each side and it fit just perfectly around the earth, okay, that square in miles would be 31,680 miles. What is the significance of 31,680? Well, here it is right here. You have to go to the Greek cipher in the Greek language to see this. I'm going to write out, in the Greek language, I'm going to write out Kurios, Jesus, Christos, which in Greek is Lord Jesus Christ, okay? Now, if you take each one of these letters using the Greek cipher, okay, and you multiply all those numbers out, you're going to get 3,168. I feel like I lost some of my notes here. There was more that I wanted to say a minute ago. All right. Oh, no, here it is. Okay. It's not saying it right. Huh. Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost everybody on the last one there, unfortunately. So 3,168. Isn't that interesting? Now, let's take this number and hold this to the side for just a second. Let's look at this number right here. So he has perimeter of the earth, the square that would go around the earth if it touched every edge of the earth is 31,680. Well, if you did that to the moon, you'd have a square, or a cube, I should say, 2,160 times 4. Because, of course, the diameter is 2160, okay? That's this side right here. And you just multiply it by 4. Now, does anybody recognize that number from anything else? Well, that is also the number they give you for the diameter of the sun, 864,000 miles. So what are the chances that the moon would have a perimeter that is equal, 4 cubes, to the diameter of the sun, plus some zeros? Like I said, zeros don't mean anything to them, so they add them and take them away freely. That's why I'm suing for answers here. And this is why atheists, they got a lot to lose, because if this is right, man, how are you gonna explain that? Of course, you're just going to dismiss it, right? Because you think that, you know, dirt can come to life when it gets sparked by electricity millions of years ago. Yeah. Okay, now here's this number right here, 3960, which represents the radius of the Earth. So obviously this number multiplied by 2 would give you the diameter of the Earth. So that's easy to find. But now let's take 3960 for a second. Let's move it over here. And let's do what we were doing earlier. We're going to start dividing it in half. 3960 divided by 2, 1,980. Do it again, and it becomes 990. Do it again, and it becomes 495. And here's the number we're going to look at right here. 495, because this is a very, very important number. This is the number of, and it's well known, okay? It's well known to these people. This is Lord Jesus Christ in the septenary cipher. So you use English for the septenary. And you reduce it. You take all these numbers and then you reduce it by the principles of reduction. You just take every double-digit number and add them together until you have single digits. And when you've done that, it will reduce to 495. So you have Lord Jesus Christ right here in Greek. And this right here, you just keep dividing down until you get down to 495, and you have Lord Jesus Christ in English. And to me, that's pretty amazing. Now, 369, or in this case, 396, is pretty important too. Because if you turn it around slightly, and you take 864 here, and you subtract the 495, it ends up with 369. So 864... run out of room here. So you get your 864, and you subtract this 495 that we found, and you end up with 369. And for those of you that are familiar with the Luna Magic Square, that was, I first heard about it from Joey Stewart on Mathematics to the Las Vegas shooting. Okay. This is what each row has to equal in a Luna Magic Square. 369. And pretty interesting that it's the same numbers as this, just turned around slightly. So it's related. Okay. So is there any number on here we haven't seen yet? Yes, there's just a couple left. So I'm going to erase this. I've shown you pretty much where all these numbers come from, or at least how they're being used in various ways. They're all Kabbalah. The study of the cube. Which is why in Mecca, the Muslims go dance around the cube and are required to do so once a year. It's why certain Jews have a little cube on their hat that they pray to. Isn't it interesting that the Jews and the Muslims worship the same thing, the cube? And yet they say they hate each other. but they're both in love with cubes. I know they're not going to say I'm in love with a cube. I know. I get that. All right. So here we have a triangle here that could be created from the perimeter side of the moon and from the edge of that perimeter to the corner of the Earth. Perimeter. That makes sense, okay? So that would equal 2,880 miles. Well, where do we ever see 288? And this is where we see it. On a pentagram, and you'll see both of these numbers here. Okay, because on a pentagram, the circle's 360 degrees, and each point of the pentagram points to a point on the circle. So the first one would be 72. This would be 144, like the 144,000 in Revelation. That's what it's talking about. Okay. And here we are, let's see, 216. There's our cube. Minus a 0, okay? Like we said, the zeros don't mean a whole lot. And then guess what the next one is? Because we're going 72 degrees for each one, right? Now another 72 degrees, and it goes to 288. So there's our 288 right there. And at the top is the 360 degrees, which my camera's missing it slightly, so it's right here. And there's our 360 right there. So now I've showed you that they use this in several different ways. And by the way, you want to go back to your 108? Each one of these angles right here is 108. Okay, so I've already picked on the atheists here because, I mean, you got a lot of explaining to do how this just happened by chance. You know, that the Earth, the sun, all the measurements that NASA's spending all these millions and millions of dollars to give us are just multiplications and divisions of Kabbalah, of the cube, and of the pentagram. Okay, so yeah, you've got a lot of explaining to do. But I also have to pick on some of our pastors who stick their head in the sand, that if you try to tell them any of this, they can't comprehend it or refuse to acknowledge it or just won't deal with it at all. And for you guys, I am just as irritated at you because I want answers. I want to know why these things are like this. And I want you to tie it in to the Bible, and I want you to explain it all. No, I'm not saying it's fake. That's not what I'm saying, okay? I'm saying it can be used fake, but somehow somebody got to summon the Bible and put it together like this for a reason. And you need to explain that. Okay, this is math. This is reality, okay? You can't deny it. 2 plus 2 is 4. And 864 for the sun is 4 cubes. It's what it is. And Lord Jesus Christ in Greek is divisions of this number right here. I mean in English, and in Greek it's this number. Okay. So you got to explain this to me. You got to tell me why. You know. Somehow we got our history messed up. Somebody's not telling the total truth. When you tell us how the Bible was translated, you're missing this for some reason. And I want to know why. I mean, I know a lot of you don't know, but get your head out of your rear end and explain it. Study it. Figure it out. Tell me why. Okay? And if you can't do that, quit your job. What are you doing? How are you going to just lead people and say that I'm teaching the truth, but if somebody brings up any sort of other information, you run? you know. So I'm suing for answers. I'm suing for answers from you mindless atheists who think that, you know, dirt can jump to life, to try to explain how this could happen by coincidence too. But I'm also suing for answers from pastors, from theologians, from anyone to explain how this fits into our history. I just had a 5-hour-long conversation or so. I don't know. Was it 5 hours? I don't know. With somebody who told me that we are literally living in a video game, and that this person named Judy is the only person who's ever beat the game. And he's persuaded of this, well, partly because a pendulum told him that it's real, but also because he sees how this matrix is constructed. You know, and part of it, yeah, you have to sit there and wonder, like, okay, I don't think I'm part of a video game. I don't get that. I'm not going to start talking to pendulums. But the Matrix, man, I mean, I just watched how the President of the United States could not get out of a helicopter until 12:17 because Buckingham Palace equals 127. And he's the daggone president. So, yeah, something's going on. Okay, and I already had it. I was watching Fox News saying, well, he's not going to get out of the helicopter. I think he actually did get out slightly at 16 after, but not a problem because the rules of Colel, you know, you get one away and it means the same thing. So I said he's going to come out at either 12:16 or 12:17 because Buckingham Palace is 127, and he has to tie it to that wonderful 127 number that we talk about all the time. You know, World Trade Center's 1, 2, and 7. Pearl Harbor was on 12:7. You know, 227, 22 divided by 7 is pi 3.14. And it would make sense to have a pi ritual there because the next day, Prince Philip came to the White House, you know, so it's perfectly logical. So everything is about this code. Everything the government does. It's amazing. I'm sitting there waiting for him to come out of the helicopter at 12:16, 12:17, right in there, and that's because he's just sitting there. It's like, well, why? How come he doesn't get it on? You know? And I mean, I already knew because I'd already punched in the numbers. I was like, well, he's going to come out this time. He did. You know? But so I'm suing. Give me some answers, folks. And hope those of you that started with me find this video and finish the rest of it. And thanks for watching.